Every decade brings speed, but the 1980s brought something more subtle. Motorcycles that looked tame, but had the guts to outrun anything foolish enough to doubt them. While the spotlight was on superbikes, these machines stayed in the background doing the real work. These are the 15 unknown sleeper motorcycles of the 1980s. Number 15, Suzuki XN85 Turbo 1983. Some motorcycles scream for attention. Others let the road do the talking. The Suzuki XN85 Turbo from 1983 was the second kind. At a glance, it looked conservative, maybe even boring. But that was the trick. This was a machine built not to impress the crowd, but to quietly blow past it. Suzuki's engineers didn't just slap a turbo on an existing bike and call it a day. They designed the XN85 from the ground up with the goal of making a high-performance machine that could actually be ridden every day. At the heart of it all was a 4-cylinder engine pushing out 673 cubic centimeters. It was air and oil cooled. And while the numbers weren't earth-shattering, the execution was. The riding position was aggressive for its time. Clip-on handlebars and rear-set foot pegs gave it a sportier feel than most of its early 80s rivals. Yet, it stayed manageable. This wasn't a race replica trying to prove something. It was a street bike that understood the assignment. Even the unique square-section steel frame, paired with a mono-shock rear suspension, added to the bike's composed handling at high speeds. On paper, it delivered around 85 horsepower. But it wasn't just about raw power. The XN85 Turbo was all about how that power came on. Boost didn't hit like a hammer. It built steadily, predictably, giving the rider confidence instead of chaos. When the turbo spooled up, it felt like the whole bike inhaled, then lunged forward with purpose. Torque came in around 56 pound-feet, strong enough to push you through corners and onto straights without needing to downshift constantly. And with a top speed near 121 miles per hour, the XN85 could absolutely hold its own in fast company. Fuel economy? Better than you'd expect from a turbocharged bike of the time. Riders reported close to 45 miles per gallon, making it not just fast, but practical. The Suzuki XN85 Turbo never chased fame. It earned respect the hard way. Quiet, quick, and way ahead of its time. Number 14, Yamaha XJ 650 Turbo 1982 to 1983. It looked like a commuter. It moved like a missile. The Yamaha XJ 650 Turbo was one of those machines that made you do a double take, because what you thought you saw was never what you actually got. Released in the early 1980s, the XJ 650 Turbo came at a time when every major manufacturer was experimenting with boost. But where others chased flash, Yamaha focused on refinement. They took their reliable air-cooled inline-4 engine and gave it a new identity. Total displacement sat at 653 cubic centimeters, and with the addition of a compact turbocharger, that everyday motor became something far more potent. Instead of chasing the biggest number on the dyno, Yamaha built a power band that made sense on real roads. Output was rated at around 90 horsepower, but the way it delivered that power made it feel like more. Boost came on smoothly and without the abrupt jolt that plagued some of its turbocharged rivals. It was predictable, planted, and fast. The frame was borrowed from the standard XJ platform, but Yamaha made smart changes. A longer swing arm improved stability under acceleration, and shaft drive gave it a smooth feel that stayed consistent mile after mile. It was still a relatively heavy machine, but it didn't behave like one when the throttle opened. Torque was a highlight. The engine produced just under 52 pound-feet, kicking in early and holding on through the mid-range. It made overtakes feel effortless and gave the bike a real-world edge, especially on the highway. Top speed? A claimed 127 miles per hour, which was nothing to laugh at for a machine that most people mistook for a mild tourer. It had long legs and the confidence to match. And despite its performance, it remained surprisingly efficient. Riders regularly saw more than 42 miles per gallon, thanks in part to careful turbo tuning and restrained fueling. The Yamaha XJ 650 Turbo didn't shout. It didn't need to. It just showed up, opened up, and vanished down the road before anyone knew what had passed them. Number 13, Honda CX 650 Turbo, 1983. This one didn't just push boundaries, it ignored them completely. The Honda CX 650 Turbo arrived in 1983 as a statement, not just about speed, but about what motorcycles could become when engineering came first and tradition took a back seat. At the core was a liquid-cooled V-twin engine, unlike anything else on the road. Displacement landed at 674 cubic centimeters and paired with a turbocharger and fuel injection. It created a package that felt light years ahead of its time. This wasn't just another boosted bike. It was a fully integrated system, tuned for seamless power and maximum control. Honda didn't chase outrageous performance figures. Instead, they built something that delivered with precision. The CX650 Turbo produced around 97 horsepower. But more importantly, it delivered that power cleanly. No wild turbo lag, no unpredictable surges, just smooth linear acceleration that felt more like electric torque than combustion punch. The bike's styling was just as bold. With full bodywork and integrated lighting, it looked like it had ridden in from the future. Underneath that skin sat a steel frame engineered for long-distance stability and high-speed confidence. Suspension at both ends was designed to keep things composed on highways, not racetracks, but the balance made it surprisingly agile in real-world riding. Torque numbers told the rest of the story. The engine churned out 75 pound-feet, which made for effortless passing power and roll-on acceleration that outpaced bikes with more displacement. It felt strong everywhere, not just at the top. Top speed? It touched 125 miles per hour, which was more than enough to remind you this was no touring machine in disguise. Fuel mileage hovered around 43 miles per gallon, respectable for a turbocharged sport tourer with this much tech on board. The Honda CX650 Turbo wasn't just another 80s experiment. It was a glimpse into what motorcycles could be. It stayed quiet, stayed smooth, and when the time came, it moved like nothing else on the road. Number 12. Yamaha FZX 750 Phaser, 1986 to 1987. Some bikes were built to win races. Others were built to win the street. The Yamaha FZX 700 Phaser did not care for trophies or lap times. It was designed for real-world riding and delivered performance where it actually mattered. Launched in 1986, the Phaser was Yamaha's way of blending cruiser comfort with sport bike attitude. At the heart of it sat a liquid-cooled inline-4 engine displacing 697 cubic centimeters. But this wasn't just any engine. It was derived from the same motor used in the FZ700, a reworked version of the legendary FZ750, tuned specifically for mid-range punch rather than top-end screaming. Power output came in at around 85 horsepower, but it felt like more thanks to how quickly it responded. The Phaser didn't need to rev to the moon to get going. Twist the throttle, and the torque came in fast, steady, and right where you wanted it. And speaking of torque, the engine delivered right around 47 pound-feet, which gave it a muscular feel that was perfect for city riding and highway pulls. It didn't rely on high revs or aggressive gearing. It simply moved when you asked it to. Styling played its own game. With a sculpted tank, stubby tail section, and exposed engine, the Phaser looked like a custom build fresh out of someone's garage. The chassis was low and tight, with a comfortable seat and slightly raised bars that kept the rider in control without feeling cramped. Top speed was estimated at around 120 miles per hour, more than enough for a bike that was meant to carve back roads and blitz through traffic. Fuel economy wasn't bad either. Riders averaged close to 44 miles per gallon, making it a practical option for everyday use. The Yamaha FZX 700 Phaser never begged for attention. It earned it by doing everything just a little better than you expected. Quick off the line, strong through the gears, and stylish enough to turn heads without trying. Number 11. Honda XLV 750R, 1983 to 1986. You wouldn't guess it from the paint job, but the Honda XLV 750R was built for much more than Sunday rides. It was big, bold, and far ahead of its time. A V-twin adventure bike before adventure bikes had even found their name. Introduced in 1983, the XLV 750R was designed primarily for the European market, and it showed in its road manners and rugged design. At the center of the machine was a reliable air and oil-cooled V-twin engine, pushing out 748 cubic centimeters. The layout gave it a low center of gravity and the kind of power delivery that felt both smooth and dependable, no matter what terrain you threw at it. It wasn't built to win drag races, but it held its own just fine. The engine produced around 61 horsepower, but more importantly, it delivered it with composure. You didn't have to wring it out, just twist, and it rolled forward like a proper touring machine. What made the XLV truly special, though, was the hardware beneath its skin. It came equipped with shaft drive, hydraulic valve adjusters, a dry sump lubrication system, and dual spark plugs per cylinder. That kind of engineering wasn't common in dual sports back then, and it gave the bike a maintenance edge that few could match. Torque came in at around 48 pound-feet, giving it enough grunt to handle off-road climbs, highway cruising, or slow technical roads without needing constant gear changes. Combined with a 5-speed transmission and strong low-end pull, it made for an easy and confident ride. Top speed was reported just shy of 110 miles per hour, a respectable number for a bike that stood tall and rode like a long-distance hauler. Fuel economy hovered around 43 miles per gallon, giving it the range to match its touring intentions. The Honda XLV 750R didn't follow trends. It predicted them. It was tough, capable, and quietly carved a path that modern ADV bikes are still following today. Number 10. BMW R80G/1980 to 1987. It didn't roar off the line or flash chrome in the sun. The BMW R80G/S had a quieter kind of presence, one built on resilience, not rebellion. It was the motorcycle that introduced a whole generation to the idea that two wheels could take you absolutely anywhere. When it rolled out in 1980, nobody quite knew what to make of it. A tall, upright stance, dirt-ready tires, and BMW's signature Boxer twin, it looked like three motorcycles had been blended into one. But under the oddball appearance was a brilliantly simple engine, displacing 798 cubic centimeters, air-cooled and mounted low for balance and durability. This was not a machine obsessed with numbers. Horsepower came in around 50 horsepower, which didn't spark headlines, but worked perfectly for what the bike was built to do: cruise all day, climb mountains, and cross continents. The monolever rear suspension and shaft drive kept things clean and low maintenance. You could ride it through streams, deserts, and gravel roads without worrying about chain stretch or dirt buildup. It was tough in ways most street bikes never needed to be. What made it a sleeper wasn't just its capability, it was how confidently it delivered torque, around 43 pound-feet right from the bottom. That made it feel alive even at low speeds and responsive when loaded with luggage or a passenger. Top speed hovered near 105 miles per hour, though most riders never cared. It was built for endurance, not sprints. You could expect close to 45 miles per gallon, giving it the legs for long hauls and multi-day rides without constant stops. The BMW R80G/S didn't have to prove anything. It just went places other bikes couldn't, then kept going. It didn't just invent a category, it became the standard, and did it without saying a word. Number 9. Honda VF1000F Interceptor, 1984 to 1985. The Honda VF1000F Interceptor didn't care much for trends. It showed up with sharp angles, serious tech, and an attitude that said performance didn't need to look traditional. At a time when superbikes were getting sleeker and more refined, this one showed up looking like it meant business. Released in 1984, the VF1000F was Honda's attempt to bring race-level engineering to the street. The centerpiece was a liquid-cooled V4 engine with gear-driven cams, displacing 998 cubic centimeters. That engine layout gave it a unique sound and an equally unique delivery, smooth through the revs but eager when pushed. The power was real. It produced just over 113 horsepower, delivered with crisp throttle response and a steady surge. This was not a bike that needed to be babied. It rewarded hard riding and came alive the faster you went. Torque came in strong, with peak figures around 65 pound-feet, making it responsive even in the mid-range. Roll-ons felt immediate, and highway pulls didn't require any drama. It just went. Styling leaned into the aggressive. With its full fairing, angular lines, and large, vented side panels, the Interceptor looked like a machine built for speed. But it wasn't just about looks. Underneath, the bike featured a box-section steel frame and a Pro-Link rear suspension, offering both rigidity and comfort. Top speed reached 149 miles per hour, a number that put it in the same league as many of the dedicated sport machines of its day. Yet, it still felt stable, never twitchy or unpredictable. Fuel economy hovered near 36 miles per gallon, which was acceptable for a leader-class performance bike with this kind of power on tap. The Honda VF1000F Interceptor was more than a styling exercise or a spec sheet warrior. It was a statement, a bold reminder that Honda was willing to push limits and redefine what a fast street bike could be. Which one of these bikes would you ride today? Let us know in the comments, hit like if this list hit home, and subscribe for more raw, underrated legends from the golden age of motorcycling. Number 8. Kawasaki GPZ 750 Turbo, 1983 to 1985. It didn't whisper and it didn't sneak up. The Kawasaki GPZ 750 Turbo came in loud, bold, and ready to prove a point. It was the kind of bike that looked like it had something to prove and actually backed it up once the boost kicked in. Launched in 1983, the GPZ 750 Turbo was part of the short-lived turbo era, but it didn't just follow the trend. Kawasaki took its base GPZ platform and went further, engineering the entire bike around the turbo system rather than tacking it on as an afterthought. At its heart was a liquid-cooled inline-4 engine displacing 738 cubic centimeters, compact and refined to handle forced induction without compromise. The power was nothing short of serious. The engine produced around 112 horsepower, but what made it stand out was the way it delivered. Once the revs climbed and the turbocharger spooled up, the bike surged forward like it had no weight to carry. There was no hesitation, just acceleration. Torque was equally impressive, peaking at around 73 pound-feet. It gave the GPZ a muscular feel through the mid-range, allowing it to hold gears longer and pull hard through corners without dropping speed. Chassis design included a strengthened steel frame, low clip-on bars, and rear set pegs that positioned the rider forward in a true sport posture. Kawasaki also included a uni-track rear suspension system, which gave the bike the stability it needed when the power arrived fast and hard. Top speed was listed at 148 miles per hour, placing it among the fastest production motorcycles of its era. Yet it handled predictably, without the twitchiness that plagued some of its boosted peers. Fuel economy sat around 37 miles per gallon, surprisingly decent for a turbocharged sport bike built for high-speed fun. The Kawasaki GPZ 750 Turbo didn't just flirt with performance, it committed. It took the risks, nailed the formula, and delivered a ride that turned doubters into believers with a single twist of the throttle. Number 7. Moto Guzzi Le Mans 3, 1981 to 1984. It didn't need to be flashy to be fast. The Moto Guzzi Le Mans 3 proved that performance could come dressed in tradition, with a mechanical heartbeat that pulsed through every part of the ride. It was raw, honest, and deeply Italian in all the right ways. Released in 1981, the Le Mans 3 was the third evolution of a model that had already earned respect on both the street and the track. At its core sat an air-cooled, longitudinal V-twin engine displacing 844 cubic centimeters. The layout gave the bike a distinct feel, with torque-rich delivery and a sound that was unmistakably Moto Guzzi. It produced around 76 horsepower, a figure that didn't leap off the page, but made its presence known on the road. This was a bike that preferred momentum to madness, and once it got going, it held its pace with smooth precision. Torque output reached 63 pound-feet, delivered low in the rev range. It surged forward with confidence, especially in second and third gear where the mid-range pull was strongest. Combined with a 5-speed transmission and shaft final drive, the ride felt fluid and grounded. The chassis used a Tanti-style steel frame, known for its rigidity and clean handling. Twin rear shocks and a low stance kept the bike planted through corners, even as the weight approached 529 pounds. Still, it never felt sluggish. It was balanced, stable, and surprisingly eager in tight bends. Top speed was reported around 128 miles per hour, fast enough to run with many of the inline fours of its day, even if it didn't shout about it. Fuel consumption came in close to 41 miles per gallon, making it as suitable for long weekend rides as it was for short bursts of performance. The Moto Guzzi Le Mans 3 didn't chase trends. It built its own legend, one gear change at a time. It was simple, strong, and when pushed, absolutely unforgettable. Number 6. Honda CBX 550F 1982 to 1984. Some motorcycles don't need big numbers to make a big impact. The Honda CBX 550F was one of those rare machines that proved sharp engineering could be just as thrilling as raw horsepower. Light, precise, and surprisingly capable, it was a true sleeper in every sense of the word. Introduced in 1982, the CBX 550F was Honda's midsize answer to a market full of larger, heavier bikes. It came fitted with an air-cooled inline, 4-engine displacing 573 cubic centimeters. While that may not sound like much, the way it was tuned made the bike feel much larger than the spec sheet suggested. Horsepower came in at around 65 horsepower, delivered with a crisp throttle and a rev-happy character. The engine felt alive from the mid-range up, making it a joy to push through the gears without ever feeling strained. One of the standout features was its unique inboard ventilated disc brakes, a system that enclosed the discs to improve braking in wet weather. Combined with a nimble steel frame and low center of gravity, the CBX was as confident in corners as it was under braking. Torque peaked at about 35 pound-feet, which might seem modest, but was perfectly matched to the bike's lightweight construction. With a dry weight around 429 pounds, the CBX was agile, flickable, and felt right at home slicing through city traffic or winding roads. Top speed was estimated at 117 miles per hour, an impressive number for a mid-size bike that often got overlooked beside its larger siblings. Fuel efficiency was another strong point, with riders averaging close to 51 miles per gallon, making it both fun and frugal to ride. The Honda CBX 550F never chased headlines. It didn't need to. It delivered clean performance day after day in a package that always felt more capable than expected. It was one of the 80s best-kept secrets, hiding brilliance in plain sight. Number 5. Suzuki GSX 750S Katana, 1982 to 1986. Not every sleeper hides behind a soft face. The Suzuki GSX 750S Katana looked sharp, angular, and even aggressive, but behind the edgy bodywork was a surprisingly balanced machine, built more for fast touring than flashy stunts. Launched in the early 1980s, the GSX 750S was a sibling to the larger GSX 1100, but with its own refined personality. At its core sat an air and oil-cooled inline-4 engine, delivering 747 cubic centimeters of displacement. It was a motor built for usable power, not peak bragging rights. Output came in at about 86 horsepower, which gave it more than enough thrust to stay competitive without making it feel twitchy. The bike built speed in a way that was smooth, confident, and completely under control. It didn't ask you to wring it out. It invited you to roll on, lean in, and enjoy the ride. Torque landed at around 46 pound-feet, coming alive in the mid-range, where most real-world riding happens. It gave the Katana an easy pull in every gear, especially useful for highway passes or slicing through traffic without needing to downshift constantly. The design was unmistakable, with its squared-off fairing, pop-up headlight on earlier versions, and bold tank lines. It looked futuristic for its time, but the GSX 750S was more than just surface. Underneath, the double cradle steel frame and long wheelbase delivered stability, especially at high speeds. Top speed hovered close to 131 miles per hour, and it got there with surprisingly little drama. Even fully loaded for a weekend ride, the Katana held its line and stayed planted. Fuel economy sat around 42 miles per gallon, giving it range that matched its touring intentions. The Suzuki GSX 750S Katana was not about extremes. It was about balance between speed and comfort, edge and restraint. A true sleeper wrapped in bold lines, built for the rider who knew exactly what they had. Number 4. Yamaha RD 350 LCYPVS, 1983 to 1986. There are motorcycles that growl, and then there are ones that scream. The Yamaha RD 350 LCYPVS was firmly in the second camp. Light, loud, and always eager, it wasn't just a bike. It was a warning shot for anyone who thought displacement was the only thing that mattered. Launched in the early 1980s, the RD 350 LCYPVS stood out with its compact two-stroke engine, a setup that was fading fast from road use at the time. The parallel twin was liquid-cooled and pushed out 347 cubic centimeters, but don't let that number fool you. What it lacked in size, it more than made up for in character. Power came in around 59 horsepower, but the real magic was in how it got there. Yamaha's power valve system, or YPVS, adjusted exhaust port timing as the engine revved up, giving the bike a smoother curve and a sudden hit of power right when you needed it. The result? A machine that felt like it doubled in strength after 6,000 revolutions per minute. Torque figures were modest, landing near 34 pound-feet, but with a dry weight of just under 320 pounds, the RD didn't need much to move like lightning. It was nimble, quick to flick, and endlessly responsive through tight corners or fast sweepers. Styling was sharp and purposeful, with twin-round headlights, classic paint schemes, and a thin, aggressive stance. The frame was a simple tubular steel setup, but the geometry gave it cornering confidence that embarrassed larger bikes. Top speed was clocked around 110 miles per hour, which for a sub-400 bike was nothing short of shocking. Fuel economy hovered near 41 miles per gallon, though most riders were too busy riding it hard to check. The Yamaha RD 350 LCYPVS didn't care about rules. It lived in the high revs, made noise unapologetically, and gave every rider a taste of what real two-stroke madness felt like. It was a riot in the shape of a motorcycle. Number 3, Kawasaki Z 550 GP, 1981 to 1985. It didn't need to be the fastest to be the most fun. The Kawasaki GPZ 550 took a different approach, smaller, sharper, and more willing than many bikes twice its size. It didn't just punch above its weight. It embarrassed heavier rivals who thought they had it beat. Introduced in 1981, the GPZ 550 was born from the KZ series, but brought into sharper focus with sportier intent. It came equipped with an air-cooled inline-4 engine that delivered 553 cubic centimeters of precise, rev-happy power. Lightweight and nimble, it was designed to handle, not just haul. Peak output came in around 54 horsepower, a modest figure on paper, but in the real world it was more than enough. The bike spun up quickly, begging to be revved and rewarding the rider with constant feedback and razor-edge responsiveness. It wasn't about brute force. It was about rhythm. Torque was equally well matched, sitting near 32 pound-feet. What made it shine was the delivery, smooth, usable, and right where riders needed it, especially on winding roads or quick passes through city streets. The GPZ stood out for its balanced chassis and clean styling. A tubular steel frame, rear-set foot pegs, and small fairing gave it a lightweight sport bike silhouette without losing everyday comfort. Handling was crisp, and the front end stayed composed through high-speed corners, thanks to a slightly steeper rake and firm suspension setup. Top speed reached roughly 115 miles per hour, enough to run with larger bikes of the day when ridden hard. Yet it always felt manageable, never twitchy or overpowered. Fuel efficiency was another win, averaging close to 47 miles per gallon, which made it ideal for riders who wanted performance without constant fill-ups. The Kawasaki GPZ 550 was not a bike that needed excuses. It showed up, held its own, and reminded everyone that size didn't always decide the winner. It just needed a rider who knew how to use it. Number 2, Honda FT 500 Ascot, 1982 to 1983. The Honda FT 500 Ascot was a street tracker built with simplicity in mind and charm in every part of its ride. It didn't need high revs or sharp fairings to stand out. It just needed a stretch of road and a rider who knew how to have fun without overthinking it. Launched in 1982, the FT 500 was named after the Ascot flat track where dirt racing was king. Honda took that spirit and translated it into a road bike with real character. At the center of it all was an air-cooled single-cylinder engine producing 494 cubic centimeters. It was simple, reliable, and had just enough attitude to keep things interesting. Power was rated at about 34 horsepower, which might sound soft until you twist the throttle. The delivery was smooth, with that low-end thump that singles are known for. It responded instantly and had no problem pulling away from lights or climbing up twisty back roads with ease. Torque came in around 32 pound-feet, available low in the rev range where it mattered most. That meant less shifting, more rolling, and a ride that always felt connected to the pavement. It was a bike you could ride hard without feeling like you were doing anything risky. The FT featured a steel tube frame, a low seat height, and an upright riding position that made it approachable for just about anyone. Its styling was clean and flat track inspired, with a small tank, short tail, and no extra fluff. Top speed was close to 96 miles per hour, more than enough for city cruising or country highway stretches. It wasn't a speed demon, but it never claimed to be. Fuel economy was excellent, with riders reporting close to 62 miles per gallon, making it one of the most efficient bikes of its class. The Honda FT 500 Ascot wasn't about showing off. It was about showing up, riding smart, and proving that simplicity can still deliver something unforgettable. Number 1, Ducati Pantah 600 SL, 1981 to 1983. Some motorcycles whisper their legacy while others lay the foundation. The Ducati 600 SL Pantah did both. It didn't just mark a turning point for Ducati. It quietly became the bike that shaped nearly every Ducati that followed. Debuting in 1981, the 600 SL Pantah introduced a new era for the Italian brand. At its core was an air-cooled L-twin engine, displacing 583 cubic centimeters. But what really made it different was the use of belt-driven camshafts, a first for Ducati, which replaced the traditional bevel gear system and simplified maintenance without sacrificing performance. Power output hovered near 58 horsepower, and while it didn't light up spec sheets, the character of the engine told a different story. It revved freely, with a mechanical heartbeat that felt raw and alive. Throttle response was crisp, and the delivery was steady, especially once the revs climbed past the mid-range. Torque peaked around 36 pound-feet, more than enough to move its lightweight frame through corners with grace. The low center of gravity and narrow build made it feel incredibly nimble, especially in twisty sections, where precision mattered more than outright speed. The bike's steel trellis frame, which would later become a Ducati signature, provided both rigidity and feedback. Paired with a 5-speed transmission and solid suspension, the ride was connected, stable, and always engaging. Top speed landed close to 115 miles per hour, a respectable figure for a mid-sized machine focused more on balance than brute force. Fuel economy was equally solid, averaging around 48 miles per gallon, giving it both performance and practicality in one sleek Italian package. The Ducati 600 SL Pantah didn't arrive with fireworks. It came with ideas, ones that would define Ducati's future. Compact, elegant, and completely focused on the rider, it remains one of the most quietly important motorcycles of the entire decade. A true sleeper that changed everything. Quiet, quick, and way ahead of their time. These 15 bikes were the kind that left jaws on the pavement and no warning in the mirrors. Think we missed a legend? Share yours in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe for more forgotten machines that hit harder than anyone expected.